welcome again to Biblical Explorations. Today we're going to take a look at Genesis chapter 1, verse 5. So, first thing to take a look at is verse in English. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. We already looked at that briefly before. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. So that's a standard way to translate it. It's actually fairly straightforward in Hebrew. Let's take a look at the Hebrew now. Wayikra, that is to name or to call. Yikra Elohim, so God named. Le'ur, he named the light, literally to the light. He named the light Yom, day. Walechoshek, and to the darkness, or, he just named darkness. Kara, Layla, so he called the darkness night. Wayehi Erev, Wayehi Boker, Yom Achad. So Yehi is literally is. It says, it's translated as past tense in English, and in a sense, grammatically that makes sense in Hebrew, but literally it's using the imperfect. And is an evening. Yehi Erev, an evening. Minute, but let's take a look first at the Greek and Latin. Kai ekalesen hotheos, which is and God named or said or called theos, tophos hemeran kai toskotos ekalesen nukta. Very straightforward translation. He called the light day, and he called the darkness, he called night. Kai egeneto hemera kai egeneto roi hemeran mia. Hemera mia. So, and then in Latin, same thing. Appelavitque, that is God, and he called lucem diem, he called the light day, et tenebras noctem, and the darkness night. Factumque, and there was, and it was, or it happened that, or there came to be, est, so there was vespera et mane, evening and morning, dies unos, one day. So, everything, there's no real differences in any of the translations, everything's straightforward, but exactly what it means, of course, as usual with Hebrew texts, is a little bit more complicated. So let's take a look here. First of all, we talked about this before. God is now naming things, and that's one of the creative acts, is to name something. It defines it, it also demonstrates power over it. So he called the light day, and he called the darkness night. Now, what's happening here is, of course, day and night come to the earth, come to God's creation, before there's a sun and a moon. As you'll notice, the sun and the moon are created later. So God is not creating astrophysical things as we understand them. What God is creating is a ritual time. He's creating sacred time. And that time begins with day and night, which are defined by their boundary lines. Remember this separation idea. He separates day and night, and that creates the boundary. And the boundary is the rising and the setting of the sun. So the Erev here is the evening. Erev means the passing or the going down or the going away. It's the evening when the sun goes down. Wayahi Boker, that is the rising of the sun or morning, Yom Achad. So there is a evening when the sun goes down, and that moment, that defining moment that separates day and night, is the sunset. That's the Erev, the sunset. In the morning, there is the sun rising. So God is creating a sacred time before there's a sun and the moon. He is creating time because time sets the ritual for the temple, the way the temple works. And this is very clear when we look at things a little bit later. In just a moment, we'll take a look at how the evening and the morning regulate sacred time at the temple. So, the concepts are fairly straightforward, but exactly what they mean is a little bit less clear. Let's take a look now at a couple of passages from Leviticus 23:32 here. God sets sacred time by which the events that the temple operate before there's a sun and the moon. Here it is again. Aaron shall arrange it evening to morning before the Lord regularly. That is to say, he's supposed to perform these sacrifices evening to morning, evening to morning. Let's take a look some more. Here is all these Levitical laws about the evening. Whosoever touches anything when he sits, she shall sit and wash her clothes and bathe himself in the water shall be unclean until the evening. The evening means the setting of the sun, but of course what it means is till the evening sacrifice. When the evening sacrifice occurs, the impure priest can't participate in that evening sacrifice, but when the evening sacrifice occurs, the new day starts, and you can then perform the sacrifice. So all these Levitical laws are defined by evening. Now, that's an important thing to note, too, in Hebrew and Middle Eastern contexts, is that day begins with the setting of the sun, not with the rising of the sun. Now, that seems paradoxical and non-intuitive to us until we understand that in the creation narratives here, that darkness preceded light. So darkness is first. The Erev is first. And when God first creates, that's when time begins. And so it begins in the evening because that's when darkness was. So the point here, we could show you lots of other examples, but evening and morning refer, of course, to rising and setting of the sun, but in the Hebrew temple context, they refer to the evening and morning sacrifice. This is called the Tamid, the perpetual sacrifice that has to be performed every morning and every evening at sunset and sunrise. And what God is doing here is then defining this sacred time. And the first thing he does is set up the way the temple is going to operate, and the mechanisms by which that can be evaluated are rising and setting of the sun. And it's really odd to us that a evening and a morning could exist without the rising and the setting of the sun, because that's what defines it for us. But from their perspective, the evening and morning are defined by the temple sacrifices. And then it says, so note, evening is first, and that's the way the Hebrews count their calendar. The setting of the sun defines the new day. Sabbath begins Friday at the sunset, and it ends Saturday at sunset. The sunset is the beginning, the sun, and then the sun's setting is the end as well. That ends the day. It also says it's the first day here. That's an interesting concept because, in fact, what it's saying is it's Sunday. Now, in modern Hebrew, you say Yom Rishon, the head day, is Sunday, but all the other days are, Yom Shani, Yom Shalshi is the third day, and that's how you say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And so what these are saying is not necessarily the first day in the universe, but the dividing of the evening and morning is the Sunday. It's the Sunday ritual. Now remember, the Jews, the seventh day is Shabbat. It's what we call Saturday. So when the Bible talks about the first day, it means Sunday. This creation event is associated with the first day, Sunday, in the Hebrew calendar, is that they are defining sacred time of the week, and the creation here is associated with the morning and evening sacrifices of each week. Yom is day, and it has quite a broad range of meanings. So let's take a look at some of these. Number one is day and daylight, just standard daylight. So you don't necessarily say it's a 24-hour period, but it is daylight. Another one is the day as a 24-hour, from Erev to Erev, from sunset to sunset. Another way it's used is talking about special days, like a day of calamity, a day of work, things like that. Pretty straightforward. Then there's the day of Yahweh, and this means the day of the Lord's eschatological triumph. It is a kind of the last day, or the last days, as we'd say it. That's used that way. Sometimes it just means some period of time here. Then it could also mean a lifetime. All his days are a lifetime. It also can mean a year. That's kind of bizarre, but a day means a year. It means more like a time, a period, a time period. What we've got here then is God calling the light day the darkness night. This then, by defining those and separating them, creates evening and morning, and that allows you to perform the sacrifices at the temple. And this occurs on day one, which is Sunday. This is the temple ritual associated with Sunday, is the day of light and darkness.